Hi everybody, and welcome to day 12 of 30 Days of Corsets. So today's question asks, what do I prefer most? Cinchers, underbust corsets, or overbust corsets? Now, the last time I answered this question nearly 6 years ago, I said that cinchers were my favorite at the time, and that's true because it makes the most sense if you are very active and you want maximum mobility. I also said that it's easiest to go to the bathroom because at the time I was wearing a lot of low-rise jeans, low-rise pants, and I can sort of like tuck my pants underneath the corset and go about my way. Also, I liked the fact that with cinchers, they stop a little bit lower down on the ribs, so the top edge tends not to overlap with my bra line or my underwire. However, 6 years later, now that I'm thinking about it, my stance has changed somewhat. So cinchers are still very comfortable for me and they are the least restrictive. However, I noticed that cinchers give me more muffin top compared to full underbust corsets. And the very short ones tend to leave like a roll of sausage all the way around the top edge, not just in the back, but in the front as well. Also, I don't have quite as much of an issue with underwires overlapping with my corset so much anymore because I've learned more about bras over time and I actually got some properly fitting ones. So now that I am wearing bras that actually fit properly around the band and the underwire is no longer floating away from my body, nor is it like kind of a little bit too low on my ribs, I find that I'm easily able to wear slightly longer underbust corsets, or rather I should say slightly higher or longer from the waist up. So underbust corsets that match the contours of my underwire help prevent that muffining, especially if it has a bit of a higher back as well. And it can add a little bit of extra oomph if that's what you're looking for. I tend not to, but it's not usually an issue for me because I do have a bit of a longer torso anyways. But as long as the bust isn't so long and as long as the underbust area of the corset or the rib part of the corset is not too tight on me such that the corset ends up sort of like jamming my underwire and especially the gore of my bra like into my sternum or my xiphoid process, since I'm rather bony right here. As long as that doesn't happen, I find it more comfortable than having that little bit of sausage. Now, some people can sort of have the best of both worlds in that situation and wear a sort of sweetheart front underbust corset. So these styles are a little bit more popular these days, where it has like the heart shape in the back to help hold in some of the squish, and it can also be slightly sweetheart shaped in the front and kind of go down. But I find personally that puts weird pressure on my diaphragm and tends to give me a little bit of acid reflux. And I sort of get a similar feeling if the cincher stops too short on my torso as well. Whereas a longer corset or a corset that comes up at the sternum does not give me any sort of gastric reflux or anything like that. So I personally just need that extra support at my diaphragm, and I feel more comfortable if my solar plexus area is covered and protected. All lengths of corsets, whether you're wearing a cincher, a waspie, an overbust, an underbust, they all tend to give you proper support of your lumbar area as long as it's patterned and the steels are curved enough, or flexible or rigid enough, depending on what you need, to support your lumbar area and support a proper curve in that area. If you specifically need extra support in your thoracic spine area, which is, you know, kind of where the rib cage starts and goes up from there and stopping at your neck, and this is the cervical area right here. So if you need extra support in your thoracic area, you may need a longer corset, like a higher underbust corset or possibly even an overbust. So although all corsets do give you posture support, I find that underbust corsets that come up a little bit higher in the back are more supportive of the thoracic area. And if you remember when I fell down the stairs and I had my car accident a couple of years ago, it was the thoracic region, it was around my ribs that probably got the most injuries. And so I prefer to have a little bit more support there. These days, I also prefer more tummy support. So although I am nulliparous, I've never been pregnant before, let's just say that. So even though I have not had kids or yet, I have gone up and down in weight over the years. And there was a period of about a year in late 2015 to around like 3/4 of the way through 2016 where I was plus size. And I definitely decided around that time that I prefer to have more support of the lower tummy to help pull in and support that area, in addition to the higher back, which I just talked about. Now, this is not to say that everybody necessarily needs a long line underbust corset. Even though my torso length is able to accommodate 11 inches, my favorite corsets tend to be between 9 and 10 inches, sometimes maybe 8.5 to 10 inches at the princess seam. And they tend to stop a little bit higher up on my hip as well. So it does give me a little bit more mobility compared to a full long line underbust corset. Like I said in some previous videos, the corset that I tend to wear the most often underneath clothing is my Madame Sher mesh ribbon cincher. So even though it's called a cincher, I think it's still like 8.5 to 9 inches at the princess seam. So on some people with a shorter torso, that would be considered a full-length underbust. I do tend to love mesh corsets in general, especially the open weave fishnet style corsets do tend to be softer. They break in very quickly and they give you a lot more mobility compared to more traditional like underbust corsets that are made out of full cotton twill or coutil. However, that does come with the caveat that the mesh breaks down very quickly as well. So you might be having to replace those corsets sometimes every 3 months if you're wearing them like all day, every day. I've also spoken about how much I'm loving ribbon cinchers this year as well, because they are more lightweight, a little bit more breezy. They do have a little bit more flexibility because there are relatively fewer bones in them as well. So when you put the mesh and the ribbon together, as in my Madame Sher corset, you kind of get the best of both worlds. So I am able to wear a slightly longer corset that is more supportive of my upper back and of my lower tummy, that still gives me plenty of mobility, and it's still like breezy for summertime. And yeah. So in conclusion, I do tend to prefer a longer underbust corset as opposed to a cincher or a waspy these days. And just because you choose a slightly longer underbust does not necessarily mean that you have to sacrifice a ton of mobility. But obviously everybody has their own preferences, so let me know in a comment down below what you prefer, cinchers, waspies, underbust corsets, overbust corsets. Let me know. And like I've said plenty of times in the past, there is such thing as corset body mismatch. So the same corset will not fit everybody perfectly. That's why I hesitate to recommend any one particular brand for everybody. But for every person who wants to and is able to safely wear a corset, I do believe that there is quite possibly a suitable corset out there for anybody who wants it. But that's all I have to say about that. So let me know what you prefer in a comment down below, whether it's cinchers, waspies, underbust corsets, overbust corsets. Let me know in a comment down below because I would love to hear from you. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next week for another video. Bye.